Multicultural London English accent, or MLE, is fast becoming the most popular amongst young Londoners today. And what we're going to do in this video is explore its roots and discuss some key features of this accent. Now, as mentioned in my other video, The Many Accents of London Explained, which you can find here, the MLE accent is one that emerged in London in the early 1980s. It's an accent which emerged due to high levels of immigration, mainly from West Africa and the Caribbean, but to a lesser extent, Somalia, South Asia, and Latin America. In addition, MLE has also borrowed a lot from the traditional East End Cockney dialect. The relationship with traditional East End Cockney can be heard with the pronunciation of certain words. So with a Cockney accent, there's often a missing T. For example, pass me a bottle of water. MLE would pronounce it, pass me a bottle of water. As you can hear, there are similarities, but the tone changes everything. Another similarity between the two accents is that when the TH is in the middle of a word, oftentimes is pronounced as a V. Not always, but sometimes. For example, in Cockney, the word further will become further. And also with MLE, instead of further, you'll hear further. Let me put it in a sentence for greater context. Bro, I can't go further with this music thing. It's dead. Now, the last similarity I like to discuss between MLE and Cockney is the dropping of H at the beginning of words. Now, with MLE, this isn't always the case. You may find an MLE speaker who pronounces the H, but that's not always the case. For example, you have some people who say here, and you have some others that say air, like man's air still. Now, with a Cockney accent, one famous example is the pronunciation of the word house. Me ass, and going home, etc, etc. Now, let's discuss the Caribbean influence on the accent. This one is the easiest to identify. MLE speakers often use Caribbean words in day-to-day speak. So for example, you can easily hear a sentence like this. Wagwan fam, you good? You see that thing I was chatting to you about the other day? I need that still, you know, I need that. So in that example, there were two words used that can trace their roots to the Caribbean, wagwan and ting. These are two words that are commonly used amongst MLE speakers. Now, the influence of Caribbean English on MLE is far beyond the scope of this video, and I can go on for hours talking about it, so I'm going to leave it there. But best believe, the influence of the Caribbean on the MLE accent is far greater than just two words. Now, moving on to West Africa's influence on MLE. Now, the first similarity between the two accents can be heard when you see TH at the beginning of a word. So for example, thing, this or that, ting, this or that. The TH is often pronounced with a T or a D instead of TH. So let's put it into context. If you heard a West African speaking English, you may hear this, open the door, open the door. If you heard an MLE speaker, you might hear this, open the door, open the door. The, from the, is both pronounced with a D. Obviously, the accents are different, but you can hear the influence on the D from the. Now, the last similarity between West African English and MLE that I'm going to discuss in this video is the use of gesticulation and being animated. Lots of West Africans when they speak use sound effects, gesticulation, and are quite animated when they speak. And this is also true for MLE speakers. If I'm bugging, please let me know down in the comments below. While there, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the MLE accent does have influences from other parts of the world. The Somali influence can be heard with the use of the word wallahi, even when the speaker isn't Muslim. In a context like this, wallahi fam, I'm telling you the truth. Wallahi fam, I swear I did that. Now let's talk about the South Asian influence on MLE. While there aren't any words in particular that I can attribute to South Asia on the MLE accent, you can definitely hear how it's affected the tonality, speech, construction of sentences in areas like Slough, Ealing, and Hounslow. And this point alludes to something that I'm going to touch on later in the video, and it's that within MLE, you have accents that lean towards different influences. So you have MLE accents that lean towards a South Asian accent, you have MLE accents that lean towards a West African accent, you have MLE accents that lean towards a Somali accent, and you have MLE accents that lean towards a Caribbean accent. Now, the next influence I'd like to discuss is often overlooked. It's actually African American Vernacular English, AAVE. Damn, that's a mouthful. But in essence, there's a lot of similarities between AAVE and MLE, one of which is the structuring of sentences when asking a question. So for example, instead of asking, are you coming over tonight? You may hear in AAVE, you're coming over tonight, right? Same with MLE, you'd hear a similar structure. You're coming over tonight. So there's an inflection on the tonight, which suggests that this is a question instead of a statement. You may or may not hear right being used after the statement. And of course, there are other similarities, especially with the use of certain words. I mean, prior to listening to American music, I don't think anybody here was using the word op to talk about enemies of progress or opposition. Now, pretty much everyone uses the word op. Also the word finna, that is American. We cannot claim that, and a lot of people use it here. Like, I'm finna get turned this weekend, I'm finna go out, I'm finna do that. that's clearly American. So there are a lot of words that are borrowed from African American vernacular English, and it's important to acknowledge these similarities. Now, the last influence I'd like to discuss in this video is from Latin America. An example of the Latin American influence on MLE is with the use of the word bunda. The word was popularized in Brazil and has made its way to London. And there's absolutely no surprises there, since in London we've seen an uptick of immigrants from Latin America coming to the capital. Now, I think this latest wave of immigration is going to have a significant impact on MLE in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And I say this because it's not difficult to spend 24 hours in London and speak Spanish like I did in this video, which you can find up here. So now that we've discussed influences, let's discuss 5 key elements of this accent. Firstly, the letter T is often skipped when in the middle of a word. So for example, bottle of water. Secondly, the I in the middle of a word or the Y at the end of a word is usually pronounced with a twang. So for example, guy, fly, like, why. Let me give you a sentence. Kinda like that thing still. Now, moving on to the third element of this accent, the TH can oftentimes become a D. So this, there, and then will become dis, there, and den. The fourth element of this accent that you need to be aware of is that sometimes the H at the beginning of a word gets dropped. This isn't always the case, but sometimes you can hear it being dropped. So instead of here, you might hear ear this, or instead of here, like I'm here, I'm here. And the last element that I'm going to mention in this video is that sometimes the TH can also become an F. So instead of think is think, and instead of thought is thought, and instead of the number 3 is the number 3. Now, let's discuss the MLE Spectrum. As I mentioned earlier, the MLE accent has subcategories. And within those subcategories, you have MLE accents that are influenced by different parts of the world. In addition, you have a spectrum in terms of formality. You have MLE accents that are very informal and some that are very formal. Oftentimes, you'll hear people referencing Ali G when speaking about the MLE accent, not realizing that it's a parody and nobody speaks like that in real life. Now, I'm going to show you 4 clips of people speaking with an MLE accent, ranging from very informal to very formal.
Beautiful.
They look
lovely.
amazing, blood.
I love
See, that's what Nando's do. But you know what? I should have told him an extra 2 minutes, man. I like mine dark.
No, we were hurrying them, so obviously now it's gonna be like under.
You was hurrying, blood.
It was you.
Man's talking about he wanted to go get some milk from the shop.
Shut up.
Random you. Don't just drink milk as they're drinking, man. You know, like when you go shop for your brethren, yeah, and you say, brother, what drink do you want? Best believe Donny's drinking a little pint of milk.
Wallahi,
Like,
man.
all the man was screaming Lucas in the Oasis. Man, I'm drinking milk, you know. Don't make me scream.
Listen, I've always done my own thing, yeah? So I am not no follower like follower man to do, oh yeah. Knowing, remember there's some people that know, bro, that's not really me. And then they still just do it, yeah, because they want to fit in. I've never been that guy. You gotta do your own thing.
And a lot of people, I mean, just to give it a bit more context, it started in the 70s, and the reason that Anna's blew up was because around that time, I think it was like the late 70s, early 80s, the ITV and BBC were basically doing much more sort of working class centered projects. So when they launched EastEnders, when they launched The Bill, when they launched London's Burning, all of those serial dramas, Casualty, all of them, the original cast of all of those shows came from Anna Shears.
Then I head downstairs. In the morning, the first drink I always have is a tea to stick to my lovely British roots. Oat milk, 2 sugars. Sometimes I'll do a green tea, sometimes I'll do a peppermint tea, little bit of honey in there.
So, as you can see, the MLE accent has gradients. Not everybody sounds the same or has the same command of the English language. You've got some brilliant speakers who speak with an MLE accent, but on the other hand, some terrible ones, as you do with every other accent.